Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Kia ora, Bolt fam. It's the director. Chargers fans, can I tell you guys a secret? Kickoff for the preseason is just about 2 weeks away before we finally see this team take the field versus the Los Angeles Rams in that game. Football season's just around the corner, baby. But you know what? We're talking a little bit about training camp first, because this is where you're going to generally get your first sneak peek of some of the exciting things left to come in September. And boy, dudes, we did get a nice preview over the first couple of days of Chargers training camp, because, dudes, this season is just so important for the Chargers. This is probably the first year that we've seen this team throw all their chips down in a very, very long time. We're going to see stories, progressions, insights, and chemistry developed in camp that are very much so worth keeping your eye on. So with the first 2 days of practice in the books, I wanted to share some of the biggest takeaways that we've had so far. And I got to tell you guys, they're looking pretty amazing out there. This team is composed of a flurry of new faces. So here's some of my biggest takeaways from the first 2 days of training camp. Question in the comments before we do kickoff, like we do in every video. Who are you most excited to see practice in pads on Monday? Of course, we do know the Chargers are padding up on Monday. Should be very exciting. My answer will be at the end of the video. Before we do kick off, guys, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. Chargers training camp, a shocking head start, aka your days 1 and 2 updates from what's going on at camp with the Bolts. Let's start things off by a very hot topic among the Chargers and the Chargers fans. You cannot flip on NFL Network without the drama ensuing of the Chargers and Derwin James not coming to terms on a contract yet, might we say, right? Derwin at this time is not practicing, right? And it's for good reason, legitimate reason. I don't feel like there's any bad blood in the water. It just feels like the two sides want to come to an agreement before he does start hitting the field that way. And again, I detect zero beef among him and Brandon Staley, Tom Telesco. It feels like they are very, very close. Every single statement from Tom, from Coach Staley, from maybe even Derwin James himself, has stated that they are very, very close at coming to terms, and that would be a huge victory for the Chargers, as we all know how important Derwin James is. If you guys haven't checked out one of my previous videos just about a week or two ago, definitely check it out, because Derwin is going to be an integral piece of this team and its success on defense in 2022. And honestly, we got to push through this dilemma as quickly as possible. Now, I am getting a lot of people asking the question, legitimate question, on how much is Derwin James going to account for in terms of his brand new contract. I would expect the number to exist somewhere between $75 million and $80 million over 4 years, or you can stretch the years or shrink them however you want, just somewhere around $19 to $20 million annually. I do think that Minkah Fitzpatrick is the highest paid safety in the NFL right now, and I think he's coming in somewhere in the realm of like 18 and a half, maybe a little bit less per year. We need to have a contract for Derwin that exceeds that. So honestly, the sooner the better, because Derwin, again, it can be cause for a little bit of concern, because he is missing valuable time, especially with these new players. Because when all is said and done, Derwin's the leader, right? Derwin is the quarterback of this defense, and his presence out there will elevate the rest of the team, especially when it comes to preparation here in camp ahead of time. He needs to be out there practicing. So ultimately, this is up to him and the Chargers. It's something that just needs to be done. It's part of the game. It's part of the sport. It's part of the NFL. I do think It needs to happen very soon, but it's something that I do expect to be resolved maybe in the next couple of days. I do think that Derwin is going to get his contract extension here very, very soon. Maybe even today, the day that you guys are watching this video, we might see some news drop that Derwin got himself an extension. Next up, next topic here is going to be called a familiar arena. Now, a big takeaway, and this is something that I can't emphasize enough. This is a pretty huge deal, dudes. Days 1 and 2 in camp, a big thing to take away from it is going to be the immediate chemistry that we're seeing all over the field, right? Bosa stated in his presser that the team was gelling rather quickly. And this is very good news when you're a team like the Chargers that, again, threw down their chips, are hoping to get, off the ground running here in the 2022 season. Being able to get on the same page is extremely important because we've seen some very talented teams not really blossom until the midseason or even the following season of making a transformation like this. And this result of them, everybody communicating right, understanding the playbook, this is really a result of Staley's genius offseason moves this season. Of course, we can credit Tom Telesco along the way, because when you take a look at every single name outside of the rookies that have been added this year, it feels like every single one of them has dipped their toe in the Fangio system in one way, shape, or form, right? And that's very good. That's a system that, Brandon Staley was born of. That's a system that the Chargers are using. It's definitely tweaked and unique, but having that foundation, that universal understanding foundation among all the players is going to pay dividends this season. And this is something I've been heralding for a while now, but being able to see it in the first couple of days of camp, very, very huge. This is a hugely important sign as the Chargers, again, like I said, are going to get off the ground running, especially when it comes to the first half of the schedule. The Chargers starting things off this year against the Vegas Raiders. We definitely need to make sure Khalil Mack gets him a piece of Derek Carr in that game, and then followed up by the Kansas City Chiefs. If the Chargers can get all on the same page for those first two games, win at least one, if not both of them, it's going to leave its mark for the rest of the season. So getting all of these people and all of these players really ready to work in unison is going to be something very important this season. Early wins might be more important than ever when it comes to the Chargers here in 2022. But perhaps on that same topic, to wrap up that conversation, perhaps the most important chemistry that sparked over the past couple of days, probably since way before then, has been between Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, right? Their process has been somewhat teased, which is pretty exciting to watch, right? These guys are talking nonstop. They're going to be watching film together. They really are connected at the hip, and that's exactly what you want to see. We did see a similar relationship with Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram at times, and Melvin Ingram being a very good player in his time with the Chargers, I don't know if even then he could stack up against what we're seeing here with Khalil Mack. This duo is going to be a huge problem for every offense in the NFL that they face, and seeing this kind of chemistry early in camp is very, very good, right? Their ability to complement each other is off to a very good start. You want to be able to communicate without actually saying anything, and these guys working in unison that way is going to be very nice. This could reflect on one of the most dominating pass rushing seasons in a long time for Los Angeles. And to kind of tack on to the end of that there, right? Joe Lombardi, the Chargers offensive coordinator, also mentioned that this is as good as it gets in terms of testing the abilities of your offensive line. Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, yeah, you got your work cut out for you, but in particular, the competition at right tackle. We're going to talk more about that in just a little bit, but being, the new guy on the block or the guy trying to fight for the job, going up against Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, you're going to earn your stripes in that one. Next up in this next segment, probably one of the biggest, I would say, stories from the training camp so far is going to be defense domination. Now, right off the bat, we need to remember what we're dealing with here on offense, which is why I have Justin Herbert up on the screen right now. Justin Herbert is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, arguably top 3. He is very, very good. Additionally, we got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, a top duo in the NFL, very talented wide receivers. We got Eckler, Everett, Parham, Palmer. These guys are exceptional talents. A top 5 offense from last year, not to mention an elevated and premium offensive line outside of the right tackle position. But despite all of this, Keenan Allen himself stated that they got their butts kicked in practice. I think that was in day 2. of Chargers training camp. That is pretty insane, and you could see it all over the field in terms of how many highlights you saw for the defense versus the highlights you saw for the offense. That's insane. It felt like no matter what Justin Herbert tried to do, there was somebody in his face and someone in the face of the wide receiver or whatever, the target that he was throwing to. Several instances of Justin Herbert holding onto the ball too long due to tight coverage was witnessed all over the place. The Chargers secondary is the real deal. Remember how we just got done talking about Khalil, Mack, Joey Bosa? Ooh, dudes, when you combine a sticky defensive back group with a premium duo of pass rushers, you are going to generate some problems. And even against one of the best offenses in the league last year, we're already seeing instances of that in camp. That is a great sign. Because this sticky coverage that we're seeing, J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel Jr., Bryce Callahan, the other DBs, I think Alohi Gilman was playing in lieu of Derwin James as they sort out his contract situation. That coverage opened the door for a Bosa sack and many swatted passes. Very impressive outing by the defensive backs and the defensive line so far. I can't wait to see how that continues to develop. We also saw very many variations, by the way, when it comes to the defensive back group in terms of their placement. So at times we saw Asante Samuel Jr. in the slot, or what Brandon Staley calls the star position, whereas other times we did see Bryce Callahan, and those guys kind of traded off back and forth. And again, that's something that we kind of anticipated weeks ago, which is really nice to see translate into camp, because again, what that creates is flexibility, right? Unpredictability for opposing offenses, and that could result in some big plays, especially when you got two beasts, screaming at you on Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. Very cool to see what the defense has shown us so early, because again, a majority of these new faces that have joined the team, they're going to be a big difference maker for this season, were on defense. And the fact that they're all coming in from the Fangio system, handpicked by Brandon Staley, and showing their grit here versus Justin Herbert in a top 5 offense in 2021, it's a good sign, dudes. It's a really good sign. We can't start planting our flags and making statements like, Chargers got themselves a top 5 defense, but this is a great head start, which is why we're called this episode a shocking head start. It's a really good sign. Next up, we're going to cover this real quickly, as I am going to get questions about this pretty much throughout the rest of the offseason until we get the final 53-man roster. Getting the right man at right tackle, right? And this is something that we fully expected to see coming into training camp in the first couple of days, right? As expected, we are now seeing a competition at right tackle unfold. And it's mainly between your guys Storm Norton and Trey Pipkins, right? Both of these guys, for the most part, nothing too shocking at this point. They got even splits in terms of opportunities. They rotated in and out. When Storm Norton was with the ones, Trey Pipkins was with the twos, and they would swap back and forth. I feel like they both got very equal opportunities here. So nothing super surprising quite yet. As stated in an article I read, I think by Daniel Popper, we will likely see more juicy news and progress and developments come out of camp soon as they can pad up on Monday. That's one to really keep your eyes peeled and see, who's starting to get the leg up at the competition. And furthermore, it feels like Brandon Staley does have a lot of faith that one of these guys is going to step up and really attack and grab onto that role. I'm still of the opinion that maybe it's not too late to add a right tackle. These are the kind of like last calls in terms of, free agents, acquisitions and stuff like that. I don't really know who we could add that could compete with even a Trey Pipkins, but still, it's something to monitor. Right tackle, you're only as strong as your weakest link, and right now we've got to see something pretty exciting in camp when it comes to Storm Norton or Trey Pipkins. At this time, unsurprising once again, I would expect Trey Pipkins to win the job, but as of right now, we do need to see more. Next up in this next segment, this is probably one of my favorite of the video. It's called I See You, New Guy. I see you. Probably should have moved this one up a little bit earlier in the video, but this is an exciting one, man. Among the players that have been, turning heads at training camp are some of the Bolts' newest members. Of course, you're seeing on screen right now, J.C. Jackson. This guy's been looking just as good as advertised, man. When you talk about Brandon Staley adding, we'll call conservatively J.C. Jackson a top 5 cornerback in the league, you're going to see some nice results as early as training camp day 1, right? And he's been looking absolutely fantastic. extremely sticky in coverage, not afraid to go up against bigger targets like, let's say, a Mike Williams. I know he had a pass breakup in one of his coverage assignments against Williams. Very, very nice, looking just as good as advertised. But again, we are early in practice. We need to see a little bit more in terms of contact, in terms of press man. But so far, the Chargers, J.C. Jackson, the man coverage, it's looking vastly, vastly improved. And on top of that, again, like we stated before, having good man coverage as well as a nice pass rush is going to pay dividends. And when you take a look at what Khalil Mack has been doing, he's looked fantastic as well. I don't know if he's logged a sack in camp yet, but he's just doing Khalil Mack things out there, right? Especially showing early improvements for our run defense. There were a couple of plays that he did get back there and disrupt a couple of running plays, and that's exactly what you needed out of a Khalil Mack. You needed a guy that can go after the quarterback, complement Joey Bosa, while also elevating this run defense to the best of his ability. So both these guys, the two probably biggest highlighted additions this offseason, definitely coming in clutch in their first couple of days of camp. Additionally, we got some other guys in here that are kind of turning heads in terms of what they are, right? I think the biggest one is Kyle Van Noy. He's surprisingly seeing a ton of reps with the ones at inside linebacker, and this could have something to do with Kenneth Murray not participating right now. We'll go over that in just a moment here at the end. But Kyle Van Noy, a lot of us viewed him as edge 3, right? Which he still can be considered that. I do definitely think that, you know, if it comes down to it, if, you know, Mack or Bosa need a breather and Chris Rumph isn't really, you know, churning out some big plays, I think we will definitely see some Kyle Van Noy coming off the edge as well. But as of right now, he's been primarily playing with the ones at inside linebacker, which is very exciting to see. And obviously, you know what you're getting in a Kyle Van Noy. Dude, even in his later years, is going to produce some very solid results. Additionally, we did see fan favorite Xander Horvath break off for a few nice plays over the last couple of days, man. This dude is quick. When talking about, you know, his RAS score, we talk about that all the time. This dude is kind of a freak of nature, right? Well, we got to see that put to the test in training camp over the past couple of days. This guy's got some big speed for his size, right? And he made some nice plays both on the ground and through the air. So much so that I think, you know, Joe Lombardi stated later in a presser that he suggests that Xander Horvath might be used more in the running game than at first anticipated, maybe more overall. That's kind of left to be determined, but it's exciting to see Xander Horvath getting some praise from the coaching staff very early in training camp. I know a lot of us are very high on him. Dude's a specimen. Be very cool to see him be one of the training camp breakouts this season. And then lastly, a couple other guys to note here. Isaiah Spiller. Speaking of running backs that can make some nice plays, particularly through the air, Isaiah Spiller was out there doing some things, right? There was one play in particular. I think it was a Texas route, an angle route. He goes up there, sharp cut, nice hands, secure, you know, run through the catch. He looked very, very nice out there as a pass catching back. And again, when you're talking about complimenting the existing players on the team, Isaiah Spiller does a couple of things for you, does he not? He's going to be your power back in complement with a Xander Horvath, the guy that can run between the tackles, but at the same time, he's a guy that you can roll out there with. Let's say Austin Eckler needs a breather. He can still catch the ball. So right now, Isaiah Spiller looking very, very nice in securing that running back 2 position for the Chargers. Additionally, a couple other guys to note out here. Sebastian Joseph Day. Showing some nice disruptions up the middle. Again, one of these new guys. Very excited to see him on the team. At one point, he batted a pass down, almost came down with an interception. The dude's going to be a beast up the middle. And then finally, Gerald Everett has been lining up everywhere. And of course, we haven't seen crazy big plays from him quite yet. But the fact that the Chargers have such confidence that they would line him up at fullback, wide receiver, and of course, tight end, shows us that they've got some big plans, you know, up and coming for Gerald Everett this season, and some that I do think are going to help contribute to what I would consider to be his breakout year in the NFL. I think Gerald Everett's going to be a monster out there. Couple of stories to monitor as we continue on. Michael Davis. Of course, we talked a lot about the Chargers DBs, cornerbacks, safeties. Nasir Adderley, you know, a little bit in there too. Michael Davis, however, unfortunately has been falling down the pecking order, right? With Bryce Callahan, Asante Samuel Jr. soaking up most of those reps, along with J.C. Jackson, of course. It feels like Michael Davis is going to have his work cut out for him climbing back up the depth chart. Now, I do think, again, it is early, right? I think Vato could have a shot at perhaps, coming in versus those speedy wide receivers, those taller wide receivers, because he does possess the size and the speed. But at the same time, man, it is pretty evident that he's been struggling since last season in this new system. And we haven't seen much evidence to suggest that he's bouncing back from that quite yet. Speaking of players bouncing back, Kenneth Murray, like we alluded to earlier on in the episode, has not been participating in training camp for the obvious reason that he's still dealing with an injury, right? One that he had surgery for earlier this year, and he's not yet ready to return. I'm one of those guys who's of the opinion that Kenneth Murray deserves another shot with us, the Chargers fans, and of course the team. And I do think he's going to make a big difference once he does come back, especially if he's sharing reps with Kyle Van Noy. That should help smooth things out. Learning from a veteran like Van Noy definitely doesn't hurt as well. But at this time, there really is no estimate on when Kenneth Murray will be back. So right now, not looking great. We would hope to see him catch a couple of practices in towards the tail end of camp, but it's left to be seen. So, as we wrap up this video, to answer my question from the top of the show, who am I most excited to see put on the pads on Monday and show us what they got? Well, my answer is definitely going to be Gerald Everett. He's been my camp star pick for a couple of weeks now, and I'm very excited to see what he can do once he can start making a little bit of contact, right? Save contact, little bit of contact, because his ability to generate yards after contact or something, I am stoked to see. It's such a new element to the Chargers. Just seeing that mixed in with the other weapons and, Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler and Josh Palmer, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, I think that's going to be very fun to witness, and maybe we start seeing the first sparks of a true camp star breakout for Gerald Everett. That's my personal favorite, my personal most anticipated player to see in pads on Monday. So my bottom line here as we wrap up the first couple of days of Chargers training camp, I think the biggest thing to walk away from is that we're already starting to see some major positive signs in just our first 2 days, right? The biggest thing that I'm excited about, me personally, that I've seen so far is definitely Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. And this is something I think was very easy for a lot of people to predict. Like, oh my God, this brand new 2022 Chargers, what's going to be exciting? I think a lot of people got Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa circled, on the exciting things for this season. But seeing those two work so closely together is a very good sign for things to come. Very cool to see those guys put in that kind of work. But maybe just as important is seeing everybody on the same page right now. If you walk away with one thing from the first 2 days of camp, is that this team is gelling. This team is coming together very, very quickly, obscurely quickly for how many new members they do have on the roster. This reflects really good on Tom Telesco, on Brandon Staley, and their ability to assemble a group of stars that really understand what this team is all about, the system that they're in, and especially on defense. You guys remember when we first hired Brandon Staley? Right? This defensive genius that we were all excited for the Chargers to hire a couple seasons back is really starting to show shades of becoming more and more visible. I think that Brandon Staley and his long-term thinking, his long-term planning are really starting to come into effect here, even in the early days of training camp. So more or less, the most exciting thing for me to see is the team gelling. So many new faces, lots of new concepts to understand, lots of teammates to really get on the same page with. It's happening at a tremendous rate, and that's something that's very exciting to see moving forward, because with so many new players added to the roster, having familiarity and comfort in a system that they know is going to offer a huge advantage for the Chargers this season, which again, after the first 2 weeks, I would say the first half of the season is very manageable, and if they can get off the ground running, those early wins going to be very important. Well, guys, let me know in the comment section below what you think of the first 2 days of training camp. Also, list anything that I may have missed in this video. I'm getting very excited for the follow-up days in camp. Remember, Chargers training camp going now through to pretty much the preseason, which is going to be the kickoff preseason game, Chargers versus Los Angeles Rams. It's going to be an exciting one, dudes. We have 2 weeks until live Chargers football does return. Lots of stories, developments coming around the corner. We're going to be here for every single one of them. Super excited to finally get back to Chargers football, and in a season where it could not be more exciting to be a Chargers fan. This team is coming. This defense is going to be a problem. Very exciting things to come, guys. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you liked what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Watch out, Mahomes.